Toronto Maple Leafs are making moves. We have multiple new Leafs updates ahead of what's going to be one of the biggest games against the season as the Leafs continue to fight for the first spot in the Atlantic. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some interesting comments from Joseph Woll following what was a very disappointing game against the Sharks for him. So a bunch to go over today, folks. But before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable. If you're part of that 70% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. And obviously, the Leafs have a huge game tonight against the Kings. Florida won in overtime yesterday, so they are now ahead of the Leafs in the Atlantic Division by 1 point. And it kind of makes the loss against the Sharks sting that much more. But a lot to go over here today. And obviously, the Leafs are in for a very important game tonight. And we'll dive into a bunch of different things surrounding, projected lines and an interesting move that the Leafs made. But I want to start here with Joseph Woll before we dive into some of the changes Berube's made to the lines. We got a bunch of comments for him on his tough game in San Jose and how he can put it past him and what happened and that weird mistake. He said, "I'm reflecting on myself as an individual. I don't think it was my best performance, and I know that. The important thing is to have a short memory, look back, find things, and I will do that." So, Darius, this one is interesting, and we'll dive into some more comments in a minute. But heading into tonight's game, where the goalie is yet to be confirmed, you have to assume it's going to be Anthony Stolarz. But regardless, maybe Craig Berube rides the hand of Joseph Woll here, just given the fact that his performance against the Sharks was, I think, unacceptable is a pretty valid word, especially with some of his the plays that he made there. The Leafs are entering the last 10 games of the season now, and this is still a very big question mark going forward. And seeing him come out and at least being self-aware is a good step. But I think this might have given the edge at this point to Anthony Stolarz.
At this point in time, at least, right? And I think it's going to be Stolarz tonight, like you alluded to. We don't know what the lineup's going to be at this point in time, like the exact lineup, but we know there's going to be some changes. We'll get to that later in the video, but I would imagine Stolarz starts tonight and then Joseph Woll goes in the back-to-back. So we'll see how that plays out. Could be wrong. We've been wrong before, right? But I do think that they're going to do 1-1-1-1 as they've been doing for the most part this season. So we'll see what eventually shakes out. But I don't think it was his best performance. It was a horrible game. But at the same time, those weird goals that goalies give up, like the one, against San Jose, those happen sometimes. But I think the bigger story in the game is, why are you taking so many bad penalties? And why does the team always have to scratch and claw back or claw their way back into a game against teams that are less than them? So I don't understand that. I don't know if we can really pin everything on the goaltenders. The goaltenders, for the most part this season, have been good, and goalies have stinkers. The best goalies in the league have stinkers throughout a season. So not going to pin any of it on the goaltending unless it continues, but it hasn't. We haven't seen that yet this season. So I expect a big bounce back from Joseph Woll when he does play. It could be tonight, could be tomorrow. I imagine it's tomorrow, but I want to see what Stolarz can do as well.
Yeah, and the goaltending has picked a pretty bad time to be not bad, but a bit worse than what they were earlier in the season, which was bound to happen. He spoke out on some of his goals. He said, "I will do the work of making sure I'm learning from the experience the best I can and staying in my processes." From a team standpoint, he basically shouted out the guys for getting those 2 late goals, which that 1 point could end up being the difference maker come the end of the season, whether that be first in the Atlantic or having home ice advantage. So I'll have to keep an eye out on that. And on the Eklund goal that I just alluded to, I'm not too sure, just a bad play. Sometimes you make bad plays. I think I was looking up the ice and my brain turned off for a second. It's unfortunate. When something like that happens, you have to do your best to put it behind you. There's no point in lingering on it. So maybe Craig Berube will give him the chance to kind of put it past him with a start. Obviously he's going to have to, because there's a back-to-back coming up here. So that's going to be very interesting. And a couple other things now surrounding the practice. Now, they're not skating today, at least from what we are aware of. They might be, practicing and skating later this afternoon. But as it pertains to the game tonight, there's a few different updates to go over here. So Matthews and Marner had the day off from practice in LA yesterday after logging heavy minutes last night. Associate coach Lane Lambert is running the practice instead of coach Craig Berube. So we're now in the final stretch of the season. Players are getting days off. Things like that are going to continue to happen, especially with the fact that, again, 10 games left in a pretty grueling season. The problem is now each game matters so much. I'm not sure how much of the core four is used to this at this point, especially Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, where each game matters down to the wire. These are mini playoff games in themselves here. And speaking of some of the moves that Berube made, Pontus Holmberg is going to be back in the lineup and is yet to be announced who comes out yet. We'd have to assume, and I'll get your thoughts on in a minute, that it's going to be Nick Robertson, but they're giving Pontus Holmberg a chance here. And David Kampf has had points in back-to-back games. He's been playing very well. He had an assist against the Sharks. He had a goal in the game before. I think David Kampf stays in here, and there's a good chance that, you'd have to assume it's either Jörn Krok or Nick Robertson, because Scott Laughton's been playing very, very well as well on that third line.
Yeah, and when you look at the bottom lines, the top 2 lines are set to me. Nobody's coming out there, and I don't think anyone's moving lines at this point in time. We don't know what's going to happen once the playoffs start with Pacioretty coming back, for example. But until the playoffs start, the top two lines are set. So when you look at the bottom six, I mean, Lawton just scored last game and he's been playing better. He's been progressing every single game, and we can see that, right? Obviously, Domi's been playing pretty good. Like, I don't hate Domi's play. Robertson hasn't offered too much recently, right? He looks okay on the third line, but he's not doing anything crazy. And we know that he responds well to being scratched. So that's probably an option. And then again, the fourth line, I think Lorentz has been fine. He's been doing his job all season. He probably stays. David Kampf has been playing really well. I think he's going to end up playing in the playoffs. I think the odd man out would be Holmberg, but the fact that he's getting back into this game, maybe it's Yarncroke, right? Again, he hasn't been playing bad, but he hasn't played much this season, and maybe he's the guy that's coming out in replacement for Holmberg. But I think once the playoffs start, because of the handedness of some of the players and everything that's happened to this point and how well David Kampf is playing, I think Holmberg is the guy on the outside looking in, and it could be Robertson too with Pacioretty going back in. But for tonight's game, definitely, like you said, it's either Yarncroke or Robertson. The third line hasn't necessarily looked bad, so I wonder if it even is Robertson. I don't think Holmberg's going to do much on that third line anyway, so I am looking at Yarncroke specifically tonight, and I think that's fine. I don't think that's going to, really change up the lineup too much besides, just swapping out two players, but we'll see what Holmberg can do in the lineup. But again, I think he's probably just going to get in for some guys to rest at this point versus, he's actually going to come in to make a difference.
Yeah, they're preparing their lines now for the playoffs. And again, you look at the lines that were you see on the morning skate on March 27th. We know that third line has been playing better. Nick Robertson hasn't been playing good. He's been getting a lot of penalties and some very unfortunate time penalties. But as you look at the fourth line now with Holmberg in, Lorentz and Kampf, I think, is a staple. Even though Kampf had some games where he was out, he's responded well since being benched and healthy scratched for 2 to 3 games. I think it was 3 games in a row, whatever it was. It's going to be one of Yarncroke or Robertson. Even going forward into the playoffs, I think there's a good chance that David Kampf, Lorentz are going to be on that fourth line. And maybe it's just riding the hot hand between Yarncroke, Robertson, and Pontus Holmberg, and that's why they're giving them a chance there. And also, of course, the blue line, you have to assume Woll's going to be playing tomorrow, but Stolar's probably in net tonight. Regardless of that, Brandon Carlo's been playing really well as well. And I want to get your thoughts on a quick thing here. He's, according to all signs, he's going to be in Simon Benoit, that is. But there's been a lot of discourse about taking out Benoit for Philip Myers and splitting lines back up there a little bit because Benoit's had a few rough games in a row following his Superman performance there for like a week straight. Is that something you think the Leafs are going to consider heading into the playoffs? I don't think it's going to happen tonight, but it could be interesting with the back-to-back. They change up some of the lines and get Philip Myers back in.
He used to play for Anaheim, so there is something to that. I think sometimes where coaches want to play these guys against their former team, but as we've seen before, they've scratched Benoit in, his hometown in Montreal, right, where he's from. So I don't think that matters too much. So I'm looking towards tomorrow because I don't think you can take Benoit out right now against the Kings. The Kings have only lost 4 times on home ice all season. Like, this is going to be a tough game tonight. And, if you put Myers in there, that could be a recipe for disaster. So see how Benoit responds tonight. If he's still not playing well, because it's crazy. Just a couple weeks ago and even a couple games ago, we were talking about how well he's been playing recently. Has been the opposite the last couple of games. So, if he comes into this game, he responds well, then you keep him in the lineup. If he isn't, it's more of the same. Maybe you'll look at Philip Meyer tomorrow to replace him. And then obviously he can play the right side alongside OEL. But some of the defense pairings, I think they still got to start, toying with things because this isn't working to a degree, right? Against some of these teams like San Jose, for some reason, has the Leafs number, but no one else's number, right? Like, what is that, right? So I wonder if they do keep toying with some of the defense pairings. So down the stretch here. So I do think there is going to be a change probably tomorrow, depending on how they play tonight and how Benoit specifically plays. But I do wonder if they continue to kind of shift things on the blue line because some pairings look okay, but I think they need to find at least 2 pairings that you're very comfortable with.
Yeah, let us know below what your thoughts are on that. Also, your thoughts are on Pontus Holmberg and the lines going forward and Joseph Woll struggles. A lot of decisions are to come for the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last few weeks of the season. We'll keep you up to date all season long. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching.